The golden hues of the late afternoon sun painted the skyline of Harborview City as Lieutenant Colonel Naomi Brooks stepped out of her sedan, her boots echoing against the pavement outside an upscale downtown bistro. The comforting scent of baked bread and simmering sauces hung in the air, inviting her into the kind of indulgence she hadn't experienced in over a year. After 12 relentless months deployed overseas, Naomi craved nothing more than peace, a good meal, and the soft hum of civilian life. At 48, Naomi carried herself with quiet confidence. Her warm brown skin, high cheekbones, and athletic build made her appear younger than her age. Dressed in dark denim jeans, a crisp white blouse, and minimalist gold earrings, she blended effortlessly with the bistro's refined clientele. To the casual observer, she was simply another diner. What they couldn't see was the bronze star in her drawer at home, the decades of service etched into her posture, or the countless nights she'd led soldiers through uncertainty. Inside, the bistro exuded elegance without pretension. Hardwood floors gleamed under crystal lighting, and the walls were adorned with soft-hued abstract art. Naomi spotted her preferred table by the window and moved toward it, her eyes taking in the quiet buzz of evening patrons enjoying their wine and laughter. But her presence drew subtle attention. A trio of well-dressed diners seated nearby paused their conversation. A tall blonde woman in a sleek black dress leaned in to whisper to her companion, who wore a tailored navy suit. The man smirked, and their eyes lingered on Naomi with unspoken assumptions. Naomi, no stranger to this kind of attention, chose grace over reaction. A waiter approached. His posture was slack, his face expressionless, lacking even the most basic courtesy. "What do you want?" he asked, tone clipped and devoid of warmth. Naomi maintained her composure. "Medium rare filet mignon, roasted vegetables on the side, and a glass of your house red, please." Without acknowledgement, he scribbled something onto his pad and walked off. Naomi exhaled and turned her gaze to the street outside. She'd weathered worse. Years in combat zones had taught her patience and control. Still, as time passed and other tables were served, including guests who arrived well after her, her patience thinned. After 40 minutes, with no meal, no drink, and not even a bread basket in sight, Naomi raised her hand to catch the waiter's attention. He approached with visible irritation. "Yes." Her voice was steady. "I ordered nearly 40 minutes ago. Can you check on my meal?" He sighed theatrically. "The kitchen's busy. You'll have to wait." "I'd like to speak with the manager," Naomi said firmly. He sneered. "Maybe this place isn't for everyone." The message was unmistakable. Naomi's jaw clenched. She had faced hostility before, but this brand, in her own country, in a restaurant she was paying to dine in, was infuriating. "Get your manager," she repeated, eyes locked on his. Before the waiter could move, a man from a nearby table stood up. His badge caught the light, his holstered firearm visible at his waist. Broad-shouldered with a square jaw, he moved with the self-assurance of authority. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. Naomi met his gaze, her voice calm. "Yes. I've asked for fair service and requested to speak to a manager." The officer's tone sharpened. "Are you causing trouble?" Naomi raised an eyebrow. "Requesting proper service is not causing trouble." He crossed his arms. "Let me see some ID." She sat straighter. "I'm a customer, not a suspect. You don't have a legal reason to ask for my ID." His hand shifted toward his belt. "I gave you an order." The room fell into a hush. Naomi could feel eyes watching, some with curiosity, others with that same flicker of amusement she'd seen in distant lands before conflict erupted. Slowly, Naomi reached into her purse and withdrew her wallet. She flipped it open, revealing her military credentials. "Lieutenant Colonel Naomi Brooks, United States Army. I've served this country for 25 years. Now, tell me, are you really threatening me over a meal?" The officer paled. Silence rippled across the dining room. Naomi stood, her presence commanding. "I suggest you reflect on how you treat civilians, especially those who've sacrificed to protect the freedoms you're sworn to uphold." Before the officer could answer, Naomi took out her phone. In the stillness, everyone could hear the voice that answered. "Chief Morgan? This is Lieutenant Colonel Brooks. I have a situation that requires your attention." 15 minutes later, the front doors opened, and Chief Raymond Morgan entered with brisk steps and a thunderous expression. Naomi didn't flinch. Her eyes stayed locked on the officer who had just tried to publicly humiliate her. The chief listened, jaw tight. After speaking with witnesses, he took the officer aside. The whispers in the room were replaced by the sound of swift accountability. By the next day, the officer was suspended pending investigation. The restaurant manager called Naomi personally, apologizing and terminating the waiter for discriminatory behavior. Chief Morgan held a press conference, denouncing abuse of power and affirming the department's dedication to equal treatment for all. Naomi attended, but not for attention. "This isn't about one officer," she said clearly into the microphone. "This is about systemic awareness, about dignity, fairness, and accountability." Her words sparked discussions across the city. Panels were formed, and a new initiative began within the police department for anti-bias training. The restaurant issued a public apology and partnered with veterans organizations to host monthly events, honoring those who had served. Naomi returned to her quiet life, declining interviews. But for the community, she had become a symbol, not of confrontation, but of strength, of calm resistance, of grace under fire. She didn't ask for the moment, but she owned it. Because sometimes, being a soldier doesn't end with deployment. Sometimes, the battle continues in unexpected places. And sometimes, one woman's composure can start a movement. Naomi Brooks didn't need applause. Justice had been served. And the country she fought for was beginning, ever so slightly, to become the place she dreamed it could be. Months later, Naomi received a letter from a young woman named Jordan, who had witnessed the entire scene at the bistro. "Dear Lieutenant Colonel Brooks," it began, "I was at that restaurant the night you stood your ground. I'm a pre-law student, and I've been hesitant about the kind of lawyer I want to become. But seeing you reminded me that justice isn't just in the courts. It's in the courage we show in everyday life. Thank you for your strength." Naomi folded the letter with care and placed it beside her medals. The fight wasn't over, but it had inspired something. One day, someone else would stand. And maybe next time, they wouldn't have to do it alone.